So let's, the last and I think the most interesting part is the latest on Laemmle Serrano. We've had stuff all over the internet about this project. I wrote an op-ed to the Signal, which they did not publish. I sent it also to the Gazette, and they did publish it. They've kind of, in the Signal, kind of implied that I didn't know what I was talking about, that my numbers were strange. So I'm going to show you where they came from. And we'll see what's going on. Actually, in today's Signal, there was the article in the business section that said Alan Ferdman's number. Alan Ferdman says that he thinks that they inflated their numbers by 30%. Well, I do, because I read that in the economic study. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea. This was the other thing that I applied for with a public records request, was the economic study. And I actually, in this study, I called Mr. Striplin's office when I heard at a city council meeting that the economic study was available, and I said, I'd like a copy of it. Would you send it to me, or do you want me to put in a public records request? And I got a call back from the city clerk's office that said, here it is on this link. We put in the public records request, and it's all done. So I went and got it. Now what we can do is we can take a look at the table in the middle of this, page 4, and I'm going to blow these numbers up for you a little bit. But this pretty well summarizes the whole study, okay? And what it does is it talks to, like it's the movie theater and the additional activity, which is the increased amount of retail that they intend to put in, and the project residents, because they have those apartments that they're building, and then project employees. So if you add, and they tried to take all this, add it up together, and come out with the amount of increased economic activity that would be in downtown Newhall. So if you look at this, I think I got it on the next page. What they're saying is that they expect the theater, and this is Laemmle's number, he's estimating that he will get 200,000 new patrons to see his theater in a year. And from the retail, they're going to get another 870,000 potential customers down there at the to go through the retail activity. Now, when I went back and I looked at this thing, they talked about this as being additional activity. So so I would assume the patrons are additive. And when you add that up, it says that they're anticipating 1,070,000 new patrons a year in downtown Newhall. Well, how many is that on an average day of doing business? So all you got to do is divide it by 365, and you'll get the average number, right? 2,932 patrons in downtown Newhall on an average day. Now, you and I both know that when it comes to retail and when it comes to movie theaters, they don't do the same business every day. There are certain days where they have big hits of customers, and other days when they're a lot lighter. So I think that there'll be everybody will be bumping elbows if just that many people show up on an average day. But they talk about the impact being $14,126,949. How do they get that number? Well, they turn around and they said every patron that goes to watch a movie and every patient that comes down there downtown to do their retail stuff will spend another $15 while they're there. Okay? And that's the number that's inflated by 30%. Because they got that number from Laemmle. Laemmle, and how do I know that? Because it's in the economic study. It says it. Laemmle claimed that every patron would spend an additional $10. And they decided, no, it'll be 15. That's about 30%, isn't it? I don't think so. So anyway, and then they said each new employee will spend $5 a day while they're there. I guess for lunch or for whatever it is. And they actually had an amount that they calculated that each one of the new residents would spend. So let's add it all up together. And when you add it all up together, it comes out to be this number, $14,126,949. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Not if you're the city. Because the city only gets 1% of sales tax. So if there's $14 million in new economic business in that area, the city's share of it is only $141,269. And then they talked about the fact that they thought that having a theater and the new retail there would cause the property values of all of the local pieces of property to go up by another $10 million. Would go up, causing an increase of $10 million in property tax. Now, the city doesn't get all that either. The city's share of that is $14,900. Where did I get those numbers? I got it out of the economic study. So far, I haven't made any numbers up. You'll see me make some up in a little bit, but not yet. So the total to the city is $156,169 per year, which pays back the $14 million in only 90 years. Doesn't sound like a very good investment to me. But I've been told, now I haven't seen this in writing, but we'll just add it in there just to make sure that we're being fair to everybody, that the city in their return on investment wants to add another $50,000 in property tax because the new buildings built will be paying property tax as well. So if we add that in, it becomes $206,000, $206,169, and it pays back in 68 years. Still not a very good number. No. I doubt very seriously whether any of those businesses that they're basing this on is going to be in business 68 years from now. So then we talked about the parking information, because I thought that was really interesting. And if you remember that there was also going to be a formal parking study. And as I found out today, that formal parking study will be released, must be released tomorrow, because it's going to be presented to the council in closed session. So it will become public tomorrow. And I asked Jason Crawford when I saw him today, do you think there's any conflicts between the parking information and the economic study and the parking study? And of course he said no, but we'll wait and we'll find out what it looks like. So the economic study also had some assumptions on parking. This is in page 4 of the economic study. I didn't make this up. And they claim that every 2 people will bring one vehicle down the new hall in their environment and group. And then they said in the parking structure itself, every parking space will be used by 4 different vehicles per day. And they wanted to make sure that the parking structure was sized so that the average occupancy was only 85%. So they had some extra that could be used by the local community. So let's do the math. I'm going to do it the easy way because there's other ways to do this. And I'm really being nice to them because I have not included in my numbers the employees or the visitors to the new structures. I'm just doing it the nice, simple, easy way. I'm saying, you're telling me there's 1,070,000 patrons coming every day, and there's 2,932 patrons per day. So that means you're going to see 1,466 vehicles per day. Sounds okay to me. Then you divide that by the parking space usage. So you divide it by 4. Because each space will accommodate 4 vehicles. And so that's 366 spaces. And if you have 85% occupancy on the average day, well, you multiply that by 1.15. And then you'll know how many spaces you need. And so you need 421 spaces to have an 85% occupancy rate on an average day without the employees and without the tenants bringing anybody there. And the study assumes at that time, you're going to find out that this is different today because we got new information at the meeting today of 350 spaces. So the parking structure is not big enough to handle the new activity. No less try to help out the locals. And what about a peak day? Right? I'm amazed. So the Signal did an editorial, and I took a couple excerpts from it, the beginning and the end, and I thought it was really interesting because it said, early this year, we expect Santa Clarita to have the option to take a giant leap forward. And in terms of the residents' desires and the city's revenue stream, $206,000? And its status as an entertainment draw. So it sounds like, boy, I'm really into this. And they said, sounds like a no-brainer. We think so. So then at the end of the thing, it says, the project hasn't been scheduled by the city council because the details are still being negotiated. Well, wait a minute. If the details are still being negotiated, how is this a no-brainer? Right? Seems like the gray matter is missing somewhere down there in the Signal office. So it talks about, it says, when the details are ready for public scrutiny, we acknowledge the truth that the devil's in the details, and we urge you to take a hard look at them and then make a decision about what to do. And I think that's true, and we'll keep you posted. And the details weren't finished. They weren't done. You're going to see that there are differences in what they're about to do than what they said they were going to do. So I posted something. I couldn't resist. Okay. I keep saying this because I have people come up to me and say, I hear you're opposed to Laemmle. And I tell them all the same thing. I am not opposed to Laemmle. I am opposed to the city giving them $14 million. So I'm not opposed to Laemmle itself. If they were going to come here on their own and it was a standalone business, I'd be one of their great cheerleaders. But I am concerned about the city of Santa Clarita heavily subsidizing the project with $14 million at a time when so many other desperately needed public projects are on the horizon. If you look at the city's budget, in the back half of it, if you remember I showed you, they have a big thing called the Capital Improvement Program. And in the Capital Improvement Program, it has a lot of different projects. It has a community center in Canyon Country. It has a new library in Saugus. And then it has other activities as well that do not have any funding associated with it. So it's interesting that we can just come up with, and this project was not in the Capital Improvement Program. So not only don't we have funding allocated for the projects that we did have in that program, now we got a new one, so where does the money come from? Now, I went on to say, for starters, they inflated the parking structure from the proposal of 300 to 400 spaces. Now, they might have had some advanced information here, because today we were told the parking structures are going to be 400 spaces, while failing to mention the cost of $10 million for building the 300 space parking structure. And in today's article in the business section, they mentioned the $10 million. But for 400 spaces, it's not $10 million anymore. So I thought that to criticize us for failing to disclose this, and then failing to disclose the total project cost, failing to compare the revenue with the project cost, I thought was not really in the best interest of the community. And then I did make the assertion that we are the third largest city in LA. We're talking about population, not available finances. Santa Clarita funding is not infinite, and at a time when we have numerous public projects planned but not funded, $14 million will go a long way to pay for one of them. So what I'd like to see the City Council do is prioritize all these projects, determine how they're going to be funded, and make that information known to the public. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if you knew what they actually were going to do before they did it? Well, Laemmle came to Ahtna today. Ahtna is the Old Town New Hall Association, and they were going to make a presentation. And it was actually Serrano that made the presentation, the builder. And they disclosed finally exactly how large the theater was going to be. And they have plans, and they're going to show you. And I'm going to tell you later on, you'll see it in the charts, but I'll tell you now. I videotaped their presentation. And right now, it is loading on YouTube. So you can go back and you can look at it. And you can, number one, verify what I'm telling you. And at the same time, you'll see a lot of other information in there as well, because they have charts and pictures of what their project is going to look like. So the Laemmle Theater is now sized as 7 screens, 3 125-seat theaters, 3 theaters with 125 seats, and 4 theaters with 50 seats. Pretty obvious the insertion was that the 50-seat theaters are for playing the art films. The parking structure is going to be owned and operated by the city. Now, in some of the past meetings we've had with Serrano and Laemmle, and I've been at them, they kind of just talked about it like Laemmle, that Serrano was going to build a parking structure, but they are not. The parking structure has not been put out for bid yet. The drawings in their proposal, in their presentation, are conceptual. So the cost really isn't firm. It's not even close. And I don't understand how they're going to do this totally in 2 weeks, or in two council meetings, because I don't think they're going to have a developer that's put in any proposals for building a parking structure. And sometimes some people have said to me, whenever something like this takes place, you need to follow the money. You know that old saying, follow the money. And maybe this is where the money gets followed, in who builds the parking structure, because we don't know who that is yet. Okay, it's being bid separately from the project, and it's now sized with 500 spaces. And one of those a new level, they're adding another level to the parking structure, and it's going to be subterranean, because they have a height maximum that they can go to. So the cost is going to go up. And you'll see me in that video. Well, you won't see me, you'll hear me. In that video, ask Jason Crawford, what's the new cost going to be? And you'll hear him say, we don't know. So I decided to take a crack at it. Ken Striplin, at the end of the presentation, the first presentation for Laemmle City Council, came over to me and told me that of the amount of money that they were talking about, $9.5 million was slated to build the parking structure, which at the time was 300 spaces. So if you divide 9.5 million by 300, you'll find out that it's about $32,000 a space, which is about, everybody says it should be about 30 grand. So if you now take that number and you multiply it times 400, the number comes out 12.6 million. The price is going up. So instead of talking about this now as a $14 million project, it is now a $16.5 million project. And I'm going to bet that when they come out with their estimate, they're going to come out even higher, because subterranean parking is far more expensive to build than level or going up. So we'll see what's going to happen. This project cost is rising. But I thought that the Serrano presentation was professional, informative. I told him that, and he saw me videotaping, that was easy, but I told him I was going to put it on YouTube. I don't think there's anything that People were very reasonable with him. I'm going to provide the link to that presentation on Facebook as soon as it's available, and then I'll mail it out with the County Country Advisory Committee meeting links. They did announce at the Old Town New Hall Association that on February the 3rd, Tim Ben Boyson will present an alternate proposal to Aetna of what he believes should happen to that redevelopment block as opposed to what Serrano and Laemmle is talking about. And the only thing that disturbed me at that meeting was in the middle of the meeting, Bob Keller and Dante Acosta were there. In the middle of the meeting, Bob Keller came out and said, "This project is spot on. It's going to be the world's greatest." And I can't do Bob Keller really well, but let me tell you, folks. But I thought that council people and elected officials were supposed to wait until they got all of the data and all the information presented to them before they were supposed. No, they don't do that. You're kidding me. I am so naive, But anyway, so you can see they're going to be pushing forward toward that. And but like I said, if you look at the videotape, you'll see the presentation of what the theater's going to look like. There's going to be 2 areas on the second floor that can be used for gatherings and so on and so forth. There'll be a plaza for other events to be held. The parking structure is not going to. They're trying to make it not look like a parking structure. They're trying to make it look like a building. So the facade of the parking structure is it looks very much like a building, and all I see when I saw that facade was dollar signs. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, it'll be presented on February the 3rd, and hopefully I will have that presentation for you as if everything goes well by tomorrow morning. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
How big is this building supposed to be? Just 400 parking spaces is like 4 or 5 levels. What are we talking about? Sounds like a skyscraper.
Well, it's going to be. It's going to be. Well, they're targeting for none of this to be over the 3.5 story height of the new library. And then if you look at their plans, when you see their plans, the buildings start out higher, and then as they go down the blocks, they get lower to kind of blend in with all the existing buildings that are already there. And so, yeah, 1 level will be underground. It'll be 4 levels with 1 level underground. And but yes, they're trying to nothing. That's the height limit is the top of the library. And I always wondered why they put that mushroom on top of the library. But that's it. It's the height.
But you talk about 45 units of apartments. You're talking about 45 units of apartments, 400 parking spaces.
No. Well, the reason why you don't include all the units themselves are supposed to have their own underground parking at the sizing of 1.5 parking spaces per unit.
I get that they have separate parking, which is good. They'll need it. I just don't understand how you can get all this into one block where that building is supposed to go.
Well, take a look at certainly the footprint. The footprint of the parking structure is the biggest building on that's going to be there, and you know that 1.5 cars per unit is nowhere near what's normally necessary in it. So that overflow is going to go into the parking structure.
And
so
they already have a design for this. Are there pictures to look at?
Yes.
And that's in your recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I kept the camera. They were showing charts, and I kept the camera on the charts. Yes. So it's not the best recording I've ever done, but you know what? I just turned the camera on in the repertory theater and let it go. Whoops. Go ahead.
I was under the assumption that the units that were being built by Serrano were going to be marketed and sold, and it appeared as if you were just showing them as rental units. I thought I saw per month rental on each unit.
Well, they talked about it today. You can listen to them. You can listen to Serrano himself, not Serrano, but you can look at the Serrano representative. And he talked about it as rental units. And one of the questions that he got asked by Ed Bernstein was, will the price of the rentals, be consistent with the rest of New Hall? Will it be a little higher? And he said they will be a little higher. And you saw back here what the rental. You saw back here what the rental prices are estimated to be. So it's $1,700 for a one-bedroom, $2,300 for a two-bedroom, and $2,800 for a three-bedroom.
Do you know if any of that will be like income specific to allow for low, moderate income housing?
This is not low-income housing, no. Nope.
Did they drill through the concrete to see what's down underneath it?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did they drill through the concrete to see what's down underneath there?
There is discussions that there are some tanks underneath that concrete. And that, I don't think that question is answered yet. And there is a good possibility that they're going to have to remediate the tanks that are there, so that should probably elevate the cost a little more.
Not only the tanks, a lot of the earth's going to have to move too. Got oil in it.
Yes. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Did you say that the parking structure is just an architectural rendition? They do not know what the heck it's going to look like?
No, there is an artist rendering of the parking structure, yes. And
but is this artistic, or is it definitively, so many floors and so many places? A footprint.
It has a footprint. There is a footprint, and I'm trying to recall whether or not it doesn't show any details inside that I recall, but there is an artist rendering of what it would look like from the outside, and they're trying to make it look like a building.
Right.
So, unlike a parking structure, which looks like a parking structure, they're trying to make it look like a building. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Have they done a geological survey to make sure that that area is not under fault?
I'm sorry, say again?
Have they done a geological survey to make sure that that property is not on a fault?
Not that I know of. I'd have to ask that question. No one asked that question. I do not know. I do not know. I just wish they hadn't torn down the old car dealer there. I always thought that would have made a great museum. But no.
Follow up. If they do find out that it's on a fault, are they still going to go ahead and with the building?
I'm having trouble understanding. Did you hear?
Yeah. If it's under a fault, will they still go?
And do they have to give back the money?
Knowing Arsenio, I apologize for not. It's just like being in a band. I'm standing behind the speakers, and so when I'm trying to listen through the speakers, it kind of garbles things a little bit. If you'll notice, the bands when they play, they always have monitors in front of them, so they can hear what's going on. I think that these guys are going to try to push this through no matter what. And there was also questions asked about the Master's College and whether the Master's College was going to pursue some kind of a way for their college students to walk to downtown New Hall directly. And of course, then the subject came up of Lyons Avenue crossing Railroad, or whether the Master's College would want to do it through Market, So it's amazing to watch. It's just they're pushing this too hard. Whenever you see something get pushed this hard that doesn't make economic sense, yes, and we don't know where it is, but it's going to be interesting, and I would suspect it will be on the city council meeting, first city council meeting in February. They will bring it out in public and vote unless something goes very wrong in between. And remember to ask, where's the money going to come from? Yes.
And is Laemmle supposed to own this building? Whose ownership is it? And if Laemmle decides that it doesn't work after a year, what happens?
Good question. And I've heard some rumors now. I only put up stuff that I had that I knew to be factual that came out of reports. But I have heard rumors, and I'm going to ask the question whether or not the city is going to give them any ongoing subsidy to make sure they stay in business. Because there is a question about that. So from the way I understand it now, and we'll ask again, Laemmle will own the theater building, Serrano will own the mixed-use retail building, and the city of Santa Clarita will own the parking structure. And the question got asked, is the parking going to be free parking or paid parking? And, Jason, you'll watch Jason say, well, it's free parking. Of course, the council can change that, but, it might, but it's free now. Yes, sir.
Well, that was going to be my question, but what's going to prevent the people that are owning or renting the residences there from parking in the structure?
Nothing.
Okay. That's
Nothing.
So generates no revenue at all?
Nothing. Right now, downtown Newhall has a parking deficit. Parking is a problem there. The Newhall refinery is very successful and eats up a lot of their parking in the evenings, which would be peak hours for people that would be coming there for shows and stuff. And it's a concern for both the rep and for the Theater Guild. Now with the barbecue place opening across the street, if that's highly successful, parking is going to get worse. And if they are successful, if those numbers are reality, parking is going to be terrible. But you know what? If parking is really bad, it's going to put businesses out of business. People don't like to go places where they can't park. And if they go out of business, if Laemmle goes out of business, I have no idea what they're going to do. Or who would want to buy the theater? I saw a thing on Facebook today. I thought it was really interesting because someone said, well, what about I forgot to mention this little fact. The discussion is that Laemmle is going to play less than 50% art house films. And if you look at the way the theater is, it pretty well says that too. They're going to have 375 seats for blockbusters, and they're going to have 200 seats for art house films. And when they first did this, I did a little study with one of the Laemmle theaters, and found that every blockbuster film that they were playing was also playing here in Santa Clarita. So you really didn't need to go there for that. And
Exactly at the same time.
Yes. So, and exactly, that's correct. And so the question was, who is this going to hurt economically if they do this? And someone said, well, the only person it would hurt would be Regal. But that's not true. Because what would happen is if Regal's business is hurt, then all the surrounding little restaurants and businesses are hurt. Because Regal supplies, if you go to, right down here, you go to the one where Route 66 is in, and you see the Edwards Theater there, and when people are there, lots of people go out of the theater and go to the little restaurants, go to Cupid's or go to Baja Fresh or one of those, or go to the ice cream parlor. And so if you hurt the theater's business, you hurt their business too. So this is going to be in competition. And realize that even when I said 260, I'm glad you brought this up. Thank you. Because even when I said it's $206,000 of economic back to the city, well, I didn't count on the fact that some of this money is just taking business away from other areas. It ought to be subtracted from these numbers in looking at the economic benefit. So, like I said, if Laemmle said, I think we have business out here, I think we can make money out here, I think we can compete with Regal, and we can do our thing, and I'm ready to come out here and build a theater, I'd be their cheerleader. But to ask us to subsidize it, subsidize a company that half the theaters they've opened have shut down, and then just to me doesn't make sense. And we'll have to wait and see. So no, I'm not opposed to a Laemmle Theater. I'm just opposed to us paying for it. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much.